Gaming has come a long way since the days of 8-bit graphics and wireframe models. Today we see visually dazzling, lavishly produced scenes and sequences that rival and even exceed anything you'd see in Hollywood. But of course, with the bells and whistles comes the dubious science. Here are the scenes, iconic landmarks of video gaming, so expertly crafted you believed what you were seeing was true, and the reasons why it just ain't so. Number 8. Giraffes don't like the cold. The Last of Us. Precious few games have the ability to tug on the heartstrings quite like The Last of Us. From its devastating open sequence depicting a daughter dying in her father's arms, to the peace, hope, and beauty of protagonist Joel and Ellie's encounter with a herd of giraffe, it's a masterpiece of storytelling. Except, as moving and iconic as the scene is, meeting a herd of giraffe in that part of North America is a smidge problematic. Now, finding an animal native to Africa in North America isn't an issue. It's perfectly plausible that the herd could have just escaped from a zoo. No, instead the issue lies in the location, Salt Lake City. For 3 months of the year, the city's minimum temperature regularly drops below freezing, down to as low as -6 degrees Celsius. That's 21 Fahrenheit for those of you who don't use Celsius. For giraffe, that's deadly cold, the species being highly susceptible to temperatures below 10 degrees Celsius, and requiring special care to stave off hypothermia. And while desert-adapted giraffe do exist, such as those found in Namibia, even they rarely deal with temperatures below freezing. Sadly, as beautiful as giraffe are and as much as they add to the scene, that herd shouldn't be there. Number 7. Even the gravity gun can't get around Newton. Half-Life 2. When the gravity gun first made its appearance in Valve's seminal Half-Life 2, such was the impact of this Swiss Army knife of video game tools that it instantly divided gaming into pre-gravity gun and post-gravity gun eras. Add in the emotional payoff of playing a game of catch with everyone's favorite robot companion dog, and both scene and tool became instant classics. However, in reality, our game of catch would have been stupidly annoying. According to Isaac Newton's third law of motion, for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. So yeet an oil drum with enough force to instantly kill a combined soldier, for instance, and the third law demands that you be thrown backwards with similarly bone-cracking force. And yet, protagonist Gordon Freeman remains absolutely rooted to the spot. Let Newton have his way, however, and far from being a fun game of catch, the scene with dogs should have been an infuriating finicky bout of repeated repositioning, coupled with the need for a medkit or two. To be fair, a third law-enabled gravity gun would be such a nuisance nobody would use it. Still, you have to feel that Valve missed a golden opportunity. Depending on the mass of the object, you could have used the gravity gun to rocket jump. Number 6. Thermonuclear explosions are bad news for your eyes. Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. It was the moment Call of Duty went big. With disturbing radio chatter about a live nuke in play and a downed pilot to rescue, the tension was nigh unbearable. But no gamer would have believed what happened next, because developers Infinity Ward carried through with the threat, leaving players staring in horror at the apocalyptic specter of a broiling mushroom cloud. And yet, staring at the detonation is precisely the problem. Because of the immense energies involved, in the case of a fusion weapon equal to the process that powers the sun, the flash from a nuclear detonation is so intense that it causes flash blindness, overwhelming the retina's ability to adjust to bright light and leaving the victim's vision marred with a dazzling afterimage that can last anywhere from a few seconds to as long as a few minutes. But it gets worse. Look directly at the fireball, as players do in the game, and all of that energy will physically burn the retina, leading to permanent scarring. Place that scarring over the central visual field and it's lights out. Permanently. So far from seeing a roiling fireball, players should have seen a blazing whiteout, if they saw anything at all. That would leave sound to carry the scene, and while an interesting idea, it would of course not have been anywhere near as impactful. Number 5. Nathan Drake's hands would be broken. Uncharted 2 Among Thieves. A shoo-in for lists of top opening sequences in video games, Uncharted 2 Among Thieves opens with a shot of a bleeding and battered Nathan Drake coming aboard a train dangling perilously over a sheer cliff. Cue a pulse-pounding sequence as the agile Drake must escape the creaking wreckage before he's reduced to a red smear on the rocks below. However, there's a fatal problem with the sequence, and it's one so subtle you likely didn't notice it. During the climb, Drake loses his grip and falls vertically down the side of the train, saved only by a death-defying fingertip grab at a narrow ledge. The fall lasts all of half a second, but that's half a second too long. As science communicator Kyle Hill explains, a mere 0.5 kilonewtons of force is all that's required to severely damage the tendons in your hands. That amounts to a fall of only a quarter of a second, a mere foot in distance. Now consider the frantic grabs the intrepid Mr. Drake is forced to make before the fall, and he was lucky to not plummet to his death right then and there. Never mind the ability to retain that grip strength to climb the sheer side of the train. Nathan Drake, Ezio Auditore, Lara Croft, their hands should all be ruined. And needless to say, don't try this at home. Number 4. Tripping an AT-AT wouldn't be that easy. Star Wars: Shadows of the Empire. Though many a Star Wars game had tried to reproduce The Empire Strikes Back's iconic AT-AT trip, Star Wars: Shadows of the Empire marked the first time players could truly experience the thrill of bringing down their own hulking grey Imperial behemoth. The method is disarmingly simple. Use your tow cable to entangle the walker's legs. The cable draws taut and over it goes. In reality, however, that's not such a great idea. As per a popular mechanics article, draw the cable taut and you place tremendous strain on the speeder's airframe, potentially leading to an in-flight breakup. Worse, to have any chance of success, the snow speeder would need to fly such insanely tight circles at such an insanely low altitude that even if incapacitating G-forces aren't a thing in Star Wars, impact with the walker's legs or the ground becomes a very real threat. Try to maintain a safe distance, and failing putting fatal tension on the cable, all you will succeed in doing is to fly literal circles around the AT-AT, laying a nice neat coil of cable for the Imperial crew to laugh at as they pass by. Were it not for the fact that Shadows of the Empire forgoes all that tension nonsense, not to mention keeps the cable floating magically in the air, the sequence would have been totally impossible. Number 3. Shepard would have been roasted to powder. Mass Effect 2. It'd be fair to say that no one expected BioWare's shocking start to Mass Effect 2. Brutally killing off the legendary Commander Shepard by suffocating them, then sending them plummeting to a fiery entry in a nearby atmosphere was a bold move, not to mention a genius one, both in terms of marketing and making credible sense of their subsequent alliance with former mortal enemy Cerberus. But what of their corpse? Could it survive the ordeal? One could possibly argue that by wearing a high-tech shielded suit, their body could both weather the entry heating and the impact with the planet's surface, indeed leaving something for Cerberus to salvage. Except even a high-tech suit isn't enough. In Mass Effect Legendary Edition, we learned that contact with molten lava kills Shepard instantly. Molten lava has a temperature range between 700 and 1200 degrees Celsius. Heating experienced by a human re-entering Earth's atmosphere would be around 1,650 degrees Celsius, as explained by an article by astrophysicist Gillian Scudder. With cremation requiring temperatures of 760 to 1,150 degrees Celsius, our iconic commander would be burnt to ash. What about DNA? Well, as per a certain research paper, DNA is no longer traceable after exposure to 1,000 degrees Celsius. So Shepard would be well and truly dead. Turns out the elusive man would have had to save the galaxy himself. Number 2. Rapture can't decide what depth it's at. BioShock. Beautiful, captivating, otherworldly, our first glimpse of the underwater jewel that is Rapture evoked a sense of wonder perfectly in keeping with the sheer audacity of the concept. If not for the horrors inside it, it'd be a holiday spot for the ages. A pity it can't exist though, at any depth. In an in-game audio library, we're told about water freezing in Rapture's pipes. This is perfectly plausible, as deep ocean water at polar latitudes, roughly matching Rapture's location, can reach a bone-chilling minus 1.9 degrees Celsius at the seabed. However, this creates a problem. According to an article by deep-sea ecologist Andrew Thaler, the crushing weight of water pressure makes building an underwater environment at even 100 meters deep difficult, and that would be in the ideal shape of a sphere. At ocean depths, Rapture's slab-sided Art Deco skyscrapers don't stand a chance. The presence of kelp around the city, a species rarely found deeper than 49 to 131 feet, implies a far more sensible depth. And yet the city is built on the seabed, and with many of its skyscrapers clocking in at over 50 stories tall, a height of 170 meters, Rapture wouldn't be an underwater city anymore. I realize this whole thing sounds very petty, but look, it's an unfortunate mess. One that this story of plasmids and little sisters could easily have hand-waved if only it hadn't pointed to deep ocean science. Number 1. A hole to space wouldn't suck you through. Portal 2. Portal 2's finale is as brilliant as it is insane, with a dorkable unit turned unhinged tyrant Wheatley seconds away from bringing aperture science down around everyone's ears. The game has you place a portal on the moon, creating a howling windstorm that leaves both Wheatley and protagonist Shell dangling by a metal thread. Enter reluctant hero GLaDOS, who cuts Wheatley loose and saves Shell, averting disaster. It's hugely entertaining stuff. The only problem is, it wouldn't have happened that way. As explained on an episode of Because Science, create a hole between a high pressure area and a low pressure vacuum, and the pressure differential will create a flow from high to low. And while it's true that air would flow rapidly near the hole, the same is not true at even a relatively close distance. Ergo, Shell lying 5 meters or more away would have stayed firmly put. What if she was pushed out? Would she have been able to cling on? Astrophysicist Gillian Scudder tackled the question and found that while Shell could breathe, the air around her would be flowing at a screaming 920 miles per hour, a speed no human grip can withstand. Wheatley, on the other hand, anchored to sturdy steel cabling, would have survived. Sucked into the vacuum or left at Wheatley's mercy, either way, Shell's dead. Sometimes science makes for a seriously downer ending, which is probably why games don't always decide to follow it. That's the end of our list, but let me know down in that comment section if you know of any other bits of science that ruin iconic video game scenes. As always, I've been Jess from WhatCulture. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you like, you can come say hi to me on my Twitter account where I'm at Jess McDonnell, but make sure you stay tuned to us here for plenty more gaming goodness.